and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Always great. You almost asked me out.
Sorry about that.
Right after that, we have a presentation. Mr. Kalinowski,
Yep,
you have the floor, sir.
thanks. You loaded my 35 slides from Good evening. My name is Steve Kalinowski. I'm the Tioga County Real Property Director. I'm here to talk, and I'm an OFA graduate a few years back.
We won't hold it against.
I was probably in this building 40-some years ago for All County Band. I'm here to talk about exemptions, and I know that it's already been a conversation, so there could be some information you already know, but I'm going over everything. I've briefed 7 town boards so far. This is my first school board. We go out to Lincoln next week, which they might hear about, father with special needs child have, but we'll see how that goes.
One question before you go any further. Are you anticipating briefing the other districts in Tioga County, or is it on an as requested basis? How does that
Well,
work?
I'm reaching out to all of them and offering to come. So
Fair.
we go out to Lincoln. I'm scheduled. Waverly, North Valley not scheduled yet, but they're looking like I'll be going to talk to them next month. Tioga Central is kind of it's okay. Won't hurt my feelings if you don't invite me. But I'm trying to get to all the town boards and all the school boards. So now I'm not advocating for or against exemptions. Just want to present some information for consideration. Now, the first exemption is the volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers exemption. In the past, there were exemptions in various locations around the state that were different. This is new, it's statewide. It's intended to recognize the sacrifices of firefighters and ambulance workers and as an aid to recruiting and retention. If granted, the property owner receives a 10% reduction on their assessment for computing the property taxes. Depending on, so far the county has passed it. So if somebody is eligible and applies for it, they get a 10% reduction on their county taxes. Not town, not school board, so it's all depending on who passes it. Must have at least 2 years of service. The fire chief sends a certified list to the assessor. These are the people who qualify. Let's see, property has to be primary residence, has to be solely residential use. If someone has a dual use, then you can apportion the property so it doesn't affect the commercial side, for example. It must be within the municipality the fire company serves, or in this case, it would be if the school district grants it, they would have to live within the school district, and their fire department would have to serve the school district. So some of that is details we have to work out because depending on borders and which fire company and how their areas overlap, and we figure that out as we go. Firefighters with or individuals with 20 or more years of service receive a lifetime exemption. What the counties came up with, county is somebody who's served their 20 years and has since retired. The county is recognizing that as being eligible. The chief has to say, yes, they served for 20 years and they would get the lifetime exemption. Surviving spouses of those with lifetime exemption and those killed in the line of duty, surviving unremarried spouses will continue to receive the exemption. And there's a couple other, administrative details that we would get through if we're going to move forward with that. The school district would like to. The county passed the exemption in August. Cantor Fire has passed it. Appalachian Fire has passed it. I don't know what's the latest with Cantor Town. They were the closest. So that's where we're at on that. The second exemption is a senior exemption. It also there's an exemption for persons with disabilities and limited income. It's a different number, but it's the same exemption. Give seniors up to 50% reduction on property taxes based on income. If I'm going to talk the scales first, and then so there's a scale where you set the base of the scale. Income anywhere below that gets 50%. And then for the next $1,000 of income, it's 45%, 40%. There's a couple different options. And I actually have at least what I have for the school district is it goes all the way up to 20%. For Cantor School District. There's an option to go to 15 and 10, and some people choose it and some people don't. On the scale, up until last year, the maximum base of the scale, for 50% from the state was $29,000. They raised it to $50,000. So there's counties out there that they just went whole hog up to $50,000. Something to consider on the scales, because right now the base for Cantor schools that I have is 10,000. So if you'd be looking at increasing, and we were talking about, I'm going to do some number crunching because we want to figure out what kind of impact, if you want to look at changing the scale, what impact that would have on your tax rate, because you don't want to go raise it $20,000 and then, so you want to be judicious about that is my recommendation.
Sorry, on that one, have other local entities made any changes yet?
None yet. We're going to be looking at the county this year. The county has, right now, our scale starts at 15,000 basically. We're going to look at it and do some analysis and try and figure out what, if any, we're going to do, if it's going to be one time, if we're going to phase it in over several years, which might be a smarter way to go. Got to do some analysis before we're going to really move on that one. The other thing on the senior exemption, just as a heads up, and this is, you're going to start seeing this out in the papers and everything like that, is they've changed the way you calculate income. It used to be a much more complicated process that was really confusing to a lot of seniors. This is going to be simpler. It's probably going to be still some confusion, but that's the assessor's job to walk them through it. Closer to the enhanced star, what will qualify. So it starts out with federal adjusted gross income. For those seniors that don't file, there's a worksheet that the state or real property tax services is provided, the assessors have. So you start out with adjusted gross income. There's 5 adjustments to it then. The first 3, the taxing authority has the option of changing it. For example, the first one, taxable IRA distributions are deducted from your adjusted gross income. The taxing jurisdiction can choose to not deduct them, but by default, the way it is now, the calculation is those get deducted. Social Security benefits not included in adjusted gross income get added. That's an option to not add them. The third one, medical and prescription drug expenses, and this, the old calculation, this was you could deduct this, and pretty much everybody, whatever they already have in existence is what you would stay with. But by default, you would deduct those medical prescription drug expenses. Now these last 2 cannot be changed by the local jurisdiction. Tax exempt interest and dividends, so they're not included in your adjusted gross income, those have to be added. And then the 5th one is loss limitations. If somebody is, filing like as a business owner, their income tax, and they're claiming losses, you're limited to $3,000 per category of loss, up to $15,000. So you can't say, I had $80,000 in losses, so my income is way down here. No, you can't do that. You're very limited on that. And I think with those last 2, because the intent of this is for our low income seniors. This isn't for somebody who's got lots of money like in Roths and things like that, that's got all this tax exempt income. Good for you, but that's not what this exemption is for. And the same, you can't claim all kinds of losses, so you can qualify for this exemption. This is for seniors who are on a limited income. So I think really that's, those last 2, that's really the intention of that one.
So the first one, do 401k RMDs?
Yeah, if it's taxable, yeah, 401k. If you're not doing Roth, then it's taxable. So then that gets deducted. Unless the option is chosen, to not deduct it. But I think most people are going to look at this again. Yeah, I think that's all reasonable. But that's, something for consideration. So firefighters, senior scale, senior income calculation. And then we're gonna be talking more and, you know, however you guys decide to move forward, I'm here to help support and
What about veterans?
well, I mean, there's a veterans exemption. That's a school,
Only the town side, is that right?
the school district can adopt them. You can pass, it's not, yeah, you guys do resolutions? Yeah, so you can do a resolution. So, I mean, I can provide information on the alternate, they call it the alternate veterans exemption. It's been around now for, 30 years. But there's a Cold War exemption, which is separate. Town of Owego's they're the only folks that have passed that one. But the all veterans exemption, if you were actually served in combat, there's a part for disability. There's a couple of things that there's 15%, then 25%, and then based on your disability rating as well. So, I mean, if that's something you guys want more information on, I can definitely get you the info and you can take a look at that.
Just kind of want to understand, excuse me, the lay of the land. So at the town side is different because the town, and so two pieces. One, what does the town of Candor do? I'm interested in, and then two, what do typically, right? What do most towns around here do and most schools around here do?
I don't know of any school district that has adopted any of the veterans exemptions. The town has. The county has. I think I'd have to check on Spencer or on Candor Village. I'm not sure about that. But again, so that's just specifically for calculating their town taxes, calculating the county taxes. So, if the school district decides to adopt that, and with that, we've got good numbers. We can run a report and find all the veterans already that are getting it in the school district, so we would know what kind of impact that would have. That's pretty important. Yeah, that's an easy one to look up. So, I mean, and I'll go ahead and I can run a report and get those numbers, so at least, something. But I think there's a little bit of hesitancy because there's a lot of veterans. And if, all of a sudden you adopt that, that's a big change. So it's, I'm a veteran. I love my veterans exemptions, but I understand from the other perspective, of the fact that, well, we got to be careful because you start having fewer and fewer people that are paying full taxes. A lot more people. So it's just one of those things.
So as a general statement, most towns have the veterans.
Yes.
And no schools do.
No schools have.
And you don't really have a sense on the firefighter stuff yet, or do you? I mean, Candor, either they already have or they're very close. Yeah,
they're very close. I haven't talked to any specifically about that. I know they've been looking it over at the town. The other towns, nobody's really said, yeah, we're going to go for that, but nobody said no. They're all kind of looking at it again. Because with the firefighters exemption, now firefighters already get a $200 deduction on their income taxes. So for them to go to the property tax exemption, it would have to be worth it. And I'll be honest with you, if school districts don't adopt it, it probably won't be worth it unless somebody's got a high assessment, real valuable property, because, with town taxes are actually a pretty small percent. In town and county, it's like, I think maybe 20% of the town county bill is actually the town. So, but I think they're still looking at it. And one group that will happen, a small group, is those who have served 20 years already. We're already talking one gentleman down in Barton Waverly, and he's retired, but he did well over 20 years and then was on the fire board and everything like that. So he's going for the county portion. So.
That's a lot of questions.
You did a very good job.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just very interested to see the data, to see what the potential impact could be on the tax revenues.
Yeah, now for the county, when I calculated the firefighters, roughly, if every firefighter in the county went for the county exemption, it would, the one time that if they all signed up on 1 year, it would affect the county tax rate 0.3%, 0.2 to 0.3%. and then they're all already in there, and then that's factored in for the rest of the time. The senior exemption, that one's gonna be a tough one to crunch some numbers on. The veterans one, like I said, the veterans one will be easy to go like, oh yeah, you've got this many of them. So, cut up where that'd be pretty easy to calculate out. So that's a tough one. And I'm a veteran too, but I understand why it's, so. Other questions? Or as we say in Los Estados Unidos, preguntas? No hay? Okay.
So, yeah, gracias.
So thanks for letting me come talk.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And, yeah.
We'll be in touch, yep.
Yep.
All right. So then we move on to, oh, you had another one, sorry, I was ready to go on CCSD, extracurricular activities. Floor is
Thank you.
yours. So last month you approved or accepted the audit for the student activities funds and approved the corrective action plan. Some of the conversation that we had had with the auditors was kind of going through and reviewing clubs and doing kind of an internal audit of some processes. So we've been starting that process, and we wanted to kind of just present to you a little bit about what a club is and how they operate and all of those
We
things.
have several great clubs here at Candor, and we've had some great clubs. Environmental comes to mind, Girls Who Code, that aren't active anymore. So we want to explain that the whole process, start to finish, of how a club is formed, if they're going to raise funds. We could have a chess club that decides they don't need funds. They're just going to get together and play chess. They need an advisor. They want to get better at that. Or they may decide they want to have a student activity account so that they can raise money and all buy their own chess set to get better at that. And it's a great thing. It helps kids not only learn whatever it is that interests them and keeps them engaged in their learning here at school, it also helps them understand how organizations are structured and run and what it is to be on the board or elected to be the president or treasurer and how to handle the finance. So before we start expanding, I thought it was a great opportunity to kind of talk about what it is, what it isn't, and how we can expand it. So, thanks a lot.
So just a couple of the things, we're take much of your time tonight with this, but a couple of things we're gonna go through is, the definition of what is an activity club. Who is involved in a club and what do they do? What is the student's role? What is the principal's role? What is the central treasurer's role? And, all the way up through. How we establish a new club, what the rules are regarding that. Accounting procedures and some of the processes, sales tax, which is something that we don't think about for schools, but we have to think about for activity clubs. And then some of those documentation, different requirements that they have. So an extra classroom activity fund is designed for students, right? It's based on student interest. Students should have the idea, or it should be the focus, and it should be well defined that it is a club that's generated for a educational purpose. So we think about some of our different clubs, and we have a list we'll show you later on, but like our Key Club and our Student Government Club that are run by students, and they're learning how to run a meeting, hold meetings, take minutes, do fundraising activities, pay their responsibilities, right? And then do that record keeping. Monies can be collected, students can do fundraising. They have to have a whole set of guidelines that go around that. Those guidelines are put out by the state, and they have their safeguarding and accounting for student activity clubs. Along with that, Corinne has a set of documentation. She's our central treasurer, Mrs. Kellogg, has a set of documentation that she also works with the clubs, with the clubs when they're organizing. Concepts are great, right? Students are handling money. They are doing those entries, those requisitions and purchase orders to make payments. They're making deposits, they're working with their advisor, they're selecting the fundraising activities that they want to do. And there's following that board policy, right, where I was incorporating that board policy that governs what students can do, what fundraising activities we can do. There are also requirements from the state comptroller's office, and I think we've been through this list, right, for establishing, for record keeping, for reporting, for expending, auditing, and then looking at clubs that may not meet that definition of a club, or who may have been inactive for a period of time, and what do we do with the funds that are sitting there when we don't have students involved or when we don't have an advisor involved. These are our current list of clubs. You see when we do give you, reports on student activities, you'll see those listed. They were all listed in our audit as well. Those are our current active clubs that have, I think, student involvement and advisors at this time.
Can you go back? Sorry.
Sure.
I didn't get to the last page, just for 3 seconds. Oh, maybe, no worries, I can, no worries, you can send it out later. I got the varsity boys basketball, I didn't see what's after that.
Yeah,
Varsity club. Varsity club and varsity sports club are different.
right.
Varsity
And then-
club and varsity sports club are different.
Okay.
And then yearbook, yeah. Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
So every year you go through a process of appointing advisors for each one of those clubs. That happens at the reorganizational meeting. So you approve the clubs, you approve the advisors. Any activity clubs that are inactive get discussed in our, typically in our at audit time, and we're reviewing to see if those need to be closed temporarily, permanently. Anytime students have interest again, those clubs could be reestablished. So just because we close a club doesn't mean that it can't be active again down the road. You appoint the central treasurer. You appoint the faculty auditor. I'm the independent auditor in our reorganizational meeting every year. And all of those people have a role in the process. There has to be a student membership, right? And they have to have a set of officers that they elect in order for that club to be active. They need to have a president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. They can have other roles within that organization, but those at least need to be established. And each one of those has activities that they're involved in. The secretary keeps minutes they have to meet monthly or regularly. Secretaries need to keep minutes. Treasurers are involved with Mrs. Kellogg and their advisor in any of those financial transactions.
Quick question for Wayne. Did they go to 2 student government reps per grade from 4, or do you still have 4 per grade?
They have 2. They were having a hard time getting kids to even run. So we have kids doubling up on those roles. Like
How do you
the
usually split it?
president might actually be his secretary too.
Okay, and then
Vice president
VP
will
treasurer.
Be the treasurer, yeah.
Thanks.
And that would be defined, and they have, as they have those elections, those roles would be defined, and they would carry out those activities. Mrs. Kellogg, the central treasurer, she does all of the record keeping, accounting, and the monthly reports that you see incorporated in the treasurer's report. She takes care of depositing and dispersing all of those funds, maintains those ledgers, works with those students, communicates with those advisors, does documentation and training and follow up with those advisors every year. She, again, prepares those reconciliations that I include in that treasurer's report. So you see that financial activity, and she's very involved in the process and establishing process for those clubs, and then, working with our auditors each year. Again, if students want to start a new club, it has to be student-centered, has to have an educational purpose. They would go to Mr. Amen in writing. They would say, we want to start a club. Once we've decided that there's enough interest in that club and the purpose meets the requirements, they would have to have a number of students, at least 7 students that could be involved, would want to be involved in that club. And then they would move on to getting that approval. Mr. Amen would recommend to Mr. Suddaby that we start that club. And then there's a process for appointing an advisor and including that advisor in contractual pay and all of those things. It's really important that a club have a defined purpose, right, or a charter, so that there's a reason why those students are meeting, organizing, holding activities, fundraising, spending those funds. So having some form of defined charter that those clubs keep, and you think about like National Honor Society, student government, those have an inherent charter. Any new clubs, we would look to have, a description of those activities that club was going to participate in. And just kind of gives us goals and purposes. Any activity clubs need to meet regularly, that's right in the regulations. They have to maintain minutes. They have to, those meetings need to be held on school property with an advisor. It can't just be a group of kids that get together and make decisions. And it's got to be an organized meeting structure, very similar to, our board meetings with rules of order and an order of meeting structure. I think we hit on all of that. I showed you the guidelines. Again, we reference the guidelines quite a bit, but we've condensed them down into some lists and documents that make it easier for people to follow and understand. I think that's it. Are we at the end?
Question, we'll be talking more about clubs, because as I said, I do think there's interest in, and we're trying to grow more student interest in being involved in clubs. And as we do, we'll be coming to the board, because before we can start a club, or each year when we appoint an advisor, it requires board approval, so we'll keep you in the loop. But if you have any questions for us at this time.
I'm curious how one defines an educational purpose, or who defines what an educational purpose is.
So that would be with the principal, the superintendent, and the board. So if I was a student and wanted to start a snowball club and keep all the reasons I thought it was educational, but Mr. Amen determined that I really just want to help my friends in the head with snow when it snows, he could say it's not enough of an educational purpose. He'd send me back to the drawing board, and then I'd start talking about the physics that go into making a snowball, the engineering of a snowball, the physics that goes to throwing a snowball. And if I could convince them, that's it. But it's educational experts and the school board who would make that determination of what would meet our standard for educational value in the club.
Right, and on the flip side of that, like a class is not a club, right? So we wouldn't have 9th grade English class club, so even though it's an educational activity, right, it can't operate as its own club. So it's kind of that.
And and the other big difference between a class and a club, the class is adult run, absolutely. Clubs are student run, absolutely. They have an advisor, but the advisor's role is simply to advise, and the students would run the club. That's the biggest distinction that I see. And that, by regulation, the money's separate. Students can raise money for their purposes. We fund the educational programming that would be a class.
So, sorry, Anna.
No.
So just building off of that, how do you further separate athletic participation from extracurricular clubs?
Right, so that's a great question. It truly is, and we don't want those two to get fuzzy, because it will get confusing. So think about, let's pick on diving, our diving team. We have a great diving team. That's a sport. It's athletic. We appoint the coach. We already see the educational value of it. And at the same time, a group of our star divers decide, no, we want to get these cool things or take a trip. and we want to start a diving club. Well, it has to go through the same process. So first of all, who's it open to? You can limit it to grade levels. You can say it's for 9th to 12th graders, but you can't say, well, it's only for those of us who already are on the diving team. It's an open club to all students. You have to say the academic purpose. That's when, let's say it's an elementary school diving club, so that's when Mr. Ahart has to determine, is that an academic purpose that's worthy of a club? Or is it something we already are doing with our diving team, so it would have to get approved? And then you follow the process, but it's the same process, so that's how you keep it, so that everybody's in their own lane and students have more opportunities, not less. It's not trying to limit what students can do, but it's trying to separate what's adult directed and adult decisions and adult run, and then empower students to get their own thing going. But it certainly can be, and often is, something that we already have. It's just students want to run a piece or something. Did I say that clearly enough?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
So there's a varsity basketball club that has a student president, vice president, treasurer, secretary.
I'll let you
Yeah.
take that.
We had that conversation just today with the advisor, and I believe we do. There are a few, I'll just put it out there. There are a few student clubs who haven't met as regularly, haven't kept good minutes. So that is our job, to advise them and make sure that they're meeting all the requirements to be a club, and not just the girls diving team getting together and saying, in addition to our regular practices diving team, we're also going to do this. That's where it gets fuzzy. If you're going to be a club, you have to be a legitimate, not that anybody's not legitimate, but a club that follows all the regulations and meets the criteria for a club.
And part of our recommendation from our auditors was to review those activities that may not really qualify as clubs. And that's kind of the process that we're going through, and starting to really talk to them about if they're going, if a club that might not meet is a club but doesn't meet the requirements, how can we either move it in that direction or think outside of that to where that really belongs, or how that can be successful, maybe in another venue.
And yeah,
We talked a lot about process and a lot about the requirements that kind of guide those decisions. So we're kind of going through that checklist, what makes sense and what doesn't.
and I don't want to muddy the waters. We're actually trying to do just the opposite. So we're going to start with our clubs. What a student activity club is, if they're raising funds, what are the criteria and the rules that we're going to follow? And then I'll go back to my diving team, my elementary diving team, great students, every one of them. They may want to work with a booster club, which would have a different set of rules and regulations and may give them more flexibility to do things, but that's another conversation. So I don't want to bring that in too much. They may also want to petition and we do have a wonderful PTSA, and get involved in that. And that might be an avenue for them to get the things they want if they're not able to meet all the requirements of a club. They really just want some support for fun activities. They don't want as much of the education value. They want the community building aspect of it. Well, there could be educational value to that, but it might be a better avenue to work with the PTSA. Is that fair enough?
To either the PTSA or the booster club have the ability to sort of funnel, so that, if the PTSA raises funds, does that have to be across the board, or can this group raise it and then?
So that's a great question. So it depends on their charter. If you'd like to speak for the PTSA, I'll let you. Most PTAs or PTSAs have charters that say we're going to support all the students, and so we're going to distribute our resources equitably. Now, that doesn't mean that because the kindergarten class is getting Magic Mike the Painter, that the seniors have to sit through Magic Mike the Painter, but there's some equity. A booster club, usually does the same thing, although they sometimes do line items. So there could be a basketball line, a soccer line, because you get parents and community members who want to support my diving team. And I don't, okay, so there is a way through a booster club that you can do that, because that's separate from the school and they can earmark money. I don't know the charters of either of those organizations here at Canada well enough to speak to them at all. I mean, to speak to their charters. I can speak to them anytime. I'm looking forward to it. But, those are all things we started with this one. We just need to clearly define, make sure everybody understands before we start asking more people to get involved. It has to be really clear, what are we asking to get involved in? Before we can advise students really well, we need which avenue is going to be best for their, because that's the ultimate goal, help educate and empower students. They need to know where are the best avenues to get what I as a student on the diving team want. So, okay. You want?
Yeah, I can say a little bit, we are supposed to be equal, especially because we do cover both schools, which is a little unique for PTAs. So we do have to be careful that, if we're doing activities in elementary, we have to do, activities in high school, and to make sure we're spending money in both schools. And it can't be, okay, but we're gonna do lots of stuff for kindergarten and then like nothing for sixth grade. So we do have to try to do that as equally as we can. And then as far as money, we've already had like some sports groups come to us, and we have basically a grant form that we've written up, and they can apply, and then we vote, and we can decide whether we have money to spend on those things. The term funneling money makes me a little nervous. As far as if someone else was doing like fundraising and hold that money, I don't know that would work. But we can definitely help different groups out. I guess if something became like a big dollar amount or something that's benefiting one group a lot and doesn't seem unfair, we would have to definitely look at things more. So far our requests, have been smaller, and we've been able to do things that have been like, fun things like, oh, can you pay for t-shirts for this night? Sure, we're happy to, because we have enough funds to do some of those smaller costs.
Thank you. And that's perfect. That's when it became one small group and they wanted more and more, that's when we could advise them, well, you should consider forming a club. If there's that much interest and you want to do that much, yeah, there are some requirements to be in the club too. You have to have officers, you have to have a charter of your own, but it's, thank you for the explanation. I think that's perfect. That's what we're trying to make sure everyone's clear on, and mostly the students are clear on, to empower them.
I have more questions, sorry. Is there the varsity club versus varsity sports club? Is that also, are they different enough, or is that also part of the conversation?
So everything is part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Cool.
But varsity sports club is actually sports teams in one group. Varsity club is a student activity club. I don't know exactly the charter or the definition of varsity club, but it is organized as a club. It is not varsity teams, right?
Yeah, it's
One of
current
those is very
athletes.
recent.
Yeah, so I started that when I was AD 3 or 4 years ago, and it was, and if it's the same current situation, it was athletes getting together to do things like community service or fun things, educational stuff.
I understand that one. I'm still not understanding what varsity sports club
It's-
entails.
So
All of the varsity athletes are by default.
different teams in one club, one activity. Okay, but varsity boys basketball is the only one that is broken out separately. Everything else is in one.
Two.
Varsity sports club.
And varsity
And
club.
varsity.
But varsity club is, yes. Yep.
And then my other question was around the other things we have heard about in recent years that were not on that list. So esports, ski club, PR club, I'm sure there's lots more. Those are just the ones that came
That come
immediately to mind. Where do they stand?
Yeah, did you get a video? You guys should have got a video emailed to you from me. Did you get a chance to watch that? You didn't get it?
I couldn't open it.
Yeah, there's
Couldn't
one.
open it?
Yeah,
It's
I
probably
think so. Yeah, I think
Oh, okay,
that's one
sorry
thing
about
I
that.
didn't have the permissions.
Greg, did you see it?
I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I did get the access to it.
Well, it's a thought that counts. I did try to
Yes,
pass
you
some
did.
along to you to look at that. Yeah, those are some sports that are active and meeting, and I was under the assumption they were approved, so I'm surprised they weren't on the list.
Yeah,
And that was the PR club, cause they,
CPR is actually the Canada Public Relations Club was the one that made the video. Yep, and esports was on that, and, so a few
and
ski
it's
club
on
was
me
on
that we
there.
missed it on the list. I just grabbed some that
Just
I
grab
already,
some,
I
yeah.
took a list that I had and put it up. For example, your questions are excellent though, and exactly why it's gonna be a process, looking at all of them, making sure that we're just bringing some clarity and support to the different activity clubs and sports clubs or teams, and making sure that we're bringing some clarity. And, as we go, we'll have more discussion and more answers.
I appreciate the fact that you're making a clear delineation between the different things. I think that's important, especially when it comes to those financial controls. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
This is probably somewhere that I've missed, but when a club is no longer active and there was remaining funds in it, where do those funds go?
So the club has to either decide before they are no longer active what they want to do with those funds and vote on that. And, whether it's a donation to the school, a bench or they can do different things like that.
Right.
Or if the club is just inactive for the period of a year, which we see on our audit,
Right.
those clubs would be closed and those funds would go to it's basically, they go to the student council, and that's that.
Of
The
what
kind of the
grade?
governing, the student school,
council.
the student council of the
Not the
school,
grade.
because that is the club that represents the full student body.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that could
So
happen
there's a
if the
process.
members
That
of
was
the
in there,
club
wasn't it?
graduated,
No,
moved out, and
And
they
left
came back
there
and
was
decided to do with their money. They just couldn't
Yeah.
close their books before they left.
But that's something we could have further conversation on about determining the path for those funds.
Oh,
Yes.
so the
I think
club
that's,
itself should.
there
They
are
get to determine that.
regulations
Right,
Yeah.
that,
but as long as whatever
Yeah.
is determined falls within those.
Right, so the
Guidelines.
students would determine it. If they all just disappeared, graduated, moved and disappeared on us, then it's dictated, then it would go to the
Yeah.
student
It
council.
goes to that.
It's-
So it has to go
General
to the
It has
student.
to, yeah, we really
Yeah,
don't
there's
get
language and I can get you that
I
language.
think
And
that's the
that's- and
most
that's kind of
appropriate,
part of it
safest
with
place
the
for that money to go.
Student activity, we don't get, the adults don't get a say.
Under that umbrella.
Right.
It's kind of like the general fund
The general fund of
student
the school.
General
Yeah.
student group, yeah.
I just didn't know if there was an option available where unexpended funds could go into some sort of a seed fund for future club startups.
Yeah, so that could be like, Chris mentioned it before, the club wouldn't have been disbanded though, they just would be inactive. So the club would have.
Right,
to-
but I'm talking about in the case of disbandment,
Oh, could
the
it be a
students
different
haven't
club?
directed where the funds are going.
Right.
Well, I can look into that.
Okay.
We can definitely look into.
I know this is really
what the
getting into
rules
the
are.
weeds,
Yeah,
so
it
I'm
is.
sorry.
That's okay.
But
That's
if
okay,
it just
we'll
became
research.
inactive and we wanted to keep the club, it could sit there. Usually you spend it with the children before they graduate, the ones who
Right.
raise the money. But if a group of freshmen started a club, didn't do anything their sophomore year, they could hang out, well, as long as it's not more than a year, right?
Well,
And then
a class,
reset, right,
the classes,
or classes do that.
it's available to them until they graduate, right?
Great.
Thank you.
Now we get to the CPSC.
Did you see the additional one?
Yes, it's one I put, yeah. It's a speech for a preschooler.
Homeschool?
Well, they're preschool, so.
But at
there's one
home and in the
school.
classroom?
Yes,
Is there a motion to accept the CPSC, CSE reports? Thanks, Kate. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Hope. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? You guys are gonna have to have your motioning and seconding, ears on. Pay attention. Next, we move to the minutes of the regular meeting, 12/21. Are there any questions, edits, et cetera, on those? I didn't have anything.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thanks, Greg. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Hope. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and we go to treasurer's report. Is there a motion to approve treasurer's report? Thanks, Kate.
I'll second.
Thanks, Greg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And appropriation transfers. And motion to approve the appropriation transfer.
So moved.
Thanks, Hope. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Kate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? On to warrants.
Chris, I'm assuming that these refunds are it's the same case as what we talked about by email.
Which page?
General?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Any of those refunds, and I did look back through all of the batches, were refunds of either overpayments, double payments, mistakes. Yeah,
Thank you, and thank you
Yep.
for the follow-up.
absolutely, yep.
I am happy to see the Adirondack chair project. Happy to see materials for that. And then my only question was on the college board. I know at one point we were paying for SATs. Is that what that is, or is that something else? Sorry, 8 of 16, third line, or second line.
Page 8.
But you would know, is that still a thing? Not a thing.
Well, I know most of our a lot of our kids qualify for, with free reduced lunch, they get the test paid for free.
Okay, got it.
Whether we are paying for all of them or not, I don't think we are, but to be honest with you, I haven't had that conversation in a while. I know we used to really push all of our kids to take the SATs. We don't really do that anymore. Most districts didn't do that for a long time. We did, just to say, hey, take it, you never know, you might choose to go to college. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of kids really didn't need it. And so now it's more of just the kids who need to take the SAT. It's really pretty amazing how much less colleges are looking at the SAT now. You know, it's not nearly as important. I mean, it is for the higher, the higher level institutions, but a lot of colleges really, it doesn't have the weight it used to. So.
And that is great news, because our kids are a lot more than test numbers.
Are there any other questions on that federal fund?
Make a motion to approve.
Thanks, Greg.
Second.
Thanks, Hope. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Recognition of visitors. Lots of visitors. Linda, you're front and center.
Front and
You get to
center.
go first. Or please go
Okay.
first, if you'd like to share.
I wanted to come and let you know that Hope and I attended an advocacy program that was put on by the School Board Association. as well as Central New York and the New York State School Board Association, which I found very interesting because they went step by step how their resolutions that we pass at their convention, how they get presented to legislature and how things are passed and how they go about advocating for issues that we're interested in. And the white elephant in the room was about electric vehicles and how they were gonna advocate for the school districts for either assistance for helping, an understanding of what was required, such as infrastructure. Is your district have the proper infrastructure in order to support charging stations? Does your bus garage have the proper lifts in order to lift an electric bus? Because an electric bus weighs about twice as much and costs twice as much, as you probably all know. And then there were other questions in the room about safety. Are our fire districts educated in how to fight a fire with these electric batteries, and the concern of student safety, safety rules of how do you get those children off the school bus when a fire, because it doesn't take long. So all those things, as well as the funding, and is the funding being properly presented now, or should it be presented when we're down to the nitty gritty of having to have all of our buses electric? And then there was the question about hydrogen batteries. Are we jumping the gun too early? Are we not going to wish we waited until the hydrogen batteries come into effect? So, we talked about all that stuff there, and in our school board association meeting, Maurice from BOCES gave us a great presentation on electric buses and its pros and cons. And I would recommend or suggest that if you had questions, that he might be a resource for you to go to. Also wanted to let you know that the Career and Tech Heavy Equipment Program is hosting what they call a Triple E event. And Wayne, you probably know all about this, and I'm probably just talking to the wrong people, but it is a program. They're going to, instead of having it on campus, they're having it at the Armory on Hanshaw Road, because they had such a large interest from employers and vendors and they wanted to bring in heavy equipment, and we just didn't have the room to do that. So they're doing it at the Armory, the State Armory on Hanshaw. And it's on the 31st of January from 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. And it's open to the public, students that are currently at BOCES and any interested students. Part of the process is that our students at BOCES will be interviewed by potential employers and vendors. Last year when they held this event, 5 or 6 of our seniors had jobs that day, so that when they graduated, they could walk right into a position. And that's part of the reason, I think, why this has grown in interest and why we have so many. We have vendors from and employers from out of state coming in to interview students. So I just wanted to let you know that that was going on. There is going to be a program sponsored by Central New York School Boards. It's called Get on the Bus. And it's a program that is going to be held at BOCES in March. I think it's March 9th. There will be an electric bus there, and there will be a presentation, and then you get on the bus and you ride the bus, so you get the experience of what it's like to be on an electric bus. And maybe some people have never rode on a bus, I don't know, but I think will be an interesting thing to attend. And also, see, I only come once in a while. Aren't you glad I don't come all the
No,
time?
this is awesome.
There's also gonna be an in-person legislature forum at TSC BOCES on February 8th. And it is an evening where you get to speak to your legislatures, let them know what your district is concerned about, what you'd like to see the legislatures fight for to help us give the education to the students that they deserve. So I think maybe Hope may have already.
If you need more than one, I've
So-
got lots of these.
But it looks like it will be a great event and an opportunity to speak your mind. It's sometimes easier to make these events than it is to partake in Lobby Day in Albany. I've been to Lobby Day in Albany, and to get to see your representative and actually talk to them sometimes can be a real challenge. A lot of times you get to talk to the secretary and not the legislature, so I would also.
You need to register and you can
Yes.
do your little hoochie toochie on whatever this thing is called.
QR code.
QR
Thank
code.
you very much. It's nothing like having several hoochie toochies.
Yeah.
And you know, if there are anybody, I know I'm going, are you going, Linda?
I think so,
So if
yes,
anybody wants to ride,
yeah. And
you
I'm
can bring
going,
your hoochie toochie with you.
I'm also going to the get on the bus thing,
Me too.
because I've not been on an electric bus and, so I plan on going to that as well. What else did I want to talk? Oh, I don't know if our audit committee at BOCES, a gentleman, we started that when I was on the board in my other life. And, Mr. Sprague, Dave Sprague, was the chairman of our audit committee, and he passed away recently. And in recognition of all of his service, we presented his children with a plaque of appreciation and acknowledgement of his service. So, I don't know if you know who he was. And I think, we've had some preliminary budget presentations in our board meetings, so we'll be doing that pony and cart show and come down and show you all the numbers. I think that's it. Other stuff you probably can catch on the website, Facebook page, but those are things I wanted to.
We might give a shout out to, Central New York and, rural schools to our board. I thought you were gonna talk to them
About
membership or.
membership, yes, this has been not a concern, but a desire of mine since I was on the TSC board before, about our participation in rural schools. I feel that they are a great advocate for us being a rural school, and they have a lot of good programs, a lot of courses that can be done online. And I would encourage you to think about that and perhaps attend a rural schools event. They have wonderful conferences, and you as a board member from a component school district, you can attend those meetings. So I think it's worth your while.
Of all the conventions and gatherings, rural schools for me was the most useful because
Yes.
it was, you were working with schools the same size, the same social structure of the communities. And it just, there was so much you could take home with you. And God, I can't think of his name now, never mind. But local people have been presenters at that conference because of programs they've developed. So really, really a wonderful experience and very knowledgeable. And
they're quite active on the state level as far as advocacy for rural schools and funding. So, I think that was it.
Thank you very much.
I won't come back again.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome, anytime. I definitely appreciate the Triple E event, because any of those, just like we just talked about, not every kid is college bound, so the more we can do, there is a huge need in skilled trades.
There's a waiting list for kids to attend BOCES. The heavy equipment, we put on another class of the construction trades, and if you're up on the campus, you'll see the construction trade students outside in this weather building these little, I don't know what they are, but they're little buildings that they're building out there, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I would not be out there in that cold, so. And the other thing that surprises me are the number of young ladies who are taking career and tech programs, not just cosmetology and not just nursing, but at the vet's school, in the auto body, the heavy equipment. I think
We have
there's,
one in heavy equipment.
yeah. And it just amazes me. And I'm thinking years ago, you would never see that. So it really opens up. And their exploration, I think they've set up, all I know they have started their timeline in talking to students in this high school earlier on, and every student now has an internship. It's not just a select few, but every career and tech student experiences an internship in their field, which is, I think, very valuable because they really get a hands-on work exposure that they don't just at BOCES. So think that's been a good improvement.
Fantastic.
So,
Thank you.
okay, I'll get off my soapbox. I won't say anything.
When we come back again, you have a chance.
If I could stay and,
Thank you.
and did you all bring your cots so you could, take a nap?
Neil, you're up next.
I was gonna save mine for later, but I think I'll just say it now, so. I just like to, each month I'm here, just try to present one small thing from a teacher, either from high school or elementary school. So, from the elementary school, my colleague, Mrs. Brudemesso, the librarian at the elementary school, she's working with her students, to interpret the new computer science and digital fluency standards, learning about the concepts of programming and algorithms. And the computer science standards, of course, are those sets of standards that are relatively new, and they belong to everybody, right? All teachers have some responsibility, and so all teachers have some responsibility to find a place in the curriculum for them. And as a librarian at the elementary school, she's finding that place and doing that work. And that's it.
Thank you. And thank you, Mrs. B.
My lesson is learned very well.
Jess?
So mine's gonna be in between those two links, I think. So I'll try to do a quick recap. I know I haven't been here the past couple months with the holidays, but in December, we were really busy. We had a glow party for the 5th and 6th graders. I wasn't there, but I heard it was a blast as usual. We worked with Wendy for this classic book fair, and we had a family night fundraiser. So we had free crafts and a free raffle for kids to do. And then we did earn money with that. So we're working on what to do with that money. One of the ideas that she had is kind of like a reading kind of nook in elementary. But that's just kind of ideas that it's not come to, but something that we're working on. So it's exciting to see something come out with that money that will benefit the kiddos. We did sponsored staff massages for high school and elementary in December. The week prior to holiday break, we had wooden ornament crafts for all elementary students. So they got to do those during the day. And then the high school, I think it was like the Wednesday before, we came in during their lunch breaks and we had a bunch of cookies and candy, and I played holiday music. And so that was just like something to do for the high school kids, because we weren't sure about crafts, but they were so excited, like, these are free? Yeah, so they like food. We had an indoor movie night over break on Friday, the December 29th, we had a double feature, so we showed Leo, and then we had a Taylor Swift movie later. Lower attendance that we hoped, but we're working on getting more attendance of these things. And then in January, so far, we've had the snowball dance for the high school. That was just last weekend. Upcoming events we're working on, we have a fun night coming up on January 26th. Magic and making is what we're calling it. We've got a magician coming in. We've got some winter crafts. That is open to all ages, so I'm hoping we get some older kids that come in too. It's kind of a 2-hour time slot. Kind of come in when you want. It's something to do on a Friday night when it's cold out and they'll get out of the house. We also have a STEM night in February that we're working on. We've got that scheduled for February 9th. We'll be doing a fundraiser in the high school with some popcorn in February. We're looking at those details. Ongoing is the monthly career speaker series. So that's really, it's done by the guidance council here in the school. We're kind of supporting them with that. So we're helping find speakers, and then we're bringing in cookies and water and a little gift card for the speaker to help the keep going. So those have been really well. So far, we've shifted the time to during the day, like the 6th period during the day in high school, and that's the attendance has been a lot higher than when we did it at 2:30. So I think it limits kind of the age group a little bit, but there's been like over 100 kids, so that's great. Oh, and then we've been able to approve some grant requests that have come in. So we do have this ongoing that where people can ask us for money. So we have a form, and we sent it out to all teachers earlier this month as a reminder. But I don't think everyone knew it was there, so we made sure we sent an email saying we have this, and we've gotten a few that came in that we were able to approve. And I think that's really exciting. One of them was a 2nd grade teacher asking for some books for their classroom. So we're able to say, yes, we're going to do that for you, so that they can get some kind of extra books beyond what they already have. And that'll be, for that class and then plus years, to come. They put in there kind of the business purpose of why they're asking for this. And, they wanted some kind of different books than they already had. So there's different topics of interest for their kiddos. And also, there was a request for supplies for the 5th and 6th grade band and general music. We were able to say yes to that. They're going to get some supplies for that class and these cool whiteboards that they can draw music notes on. So things that they couldn't get with their budget they already have, where we can step in, and it makes me really happy that what I want to do is PTA.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're amazing. I'm tired.
It's a group of us. It's not just me, but yes, we get tired too.
Good job.
Sarah?
I'm just here. I don't have basketball games, so I'm here. Well,
Big
my
night out.
children don't have basketball games. I'm here.
We appreciate it. We don't have considerations. We do have a consent agenda, including some changes this evening.
Did you all get the email about removing the one? Okay.
And there was extra info on the sports mergers, and Holly's not here, but do you know, was that IEC generated? It's really interesting. It's got
Attached?
the
Yeah, it's part of
enrollment
the,
figures and a sort of
now.
historical. Okay.
Yeah, it's part of the application now.
And is there a new rubric in place for the steering committee?
No, fine. Wayne and I were both at the meeting along with Holly, and we're still talking about the rubric. It hasn't changed yet. For this particular season, upcoming, there was nothing controversial. Everything was agreed, readily and quickly by everybody on the committee. So,
Excellent. And sorry, I jumped my own procedure. Is there anything that should be pulled out for separate consideration? Barring that, any other questions on any of that?
Much better on my screen. I ran out of ink.
Not so much a question, but a request in process. Just knowing that most of us are also working professionals, to have consent agenda items a day ahead of time, it's very hard to review additions that come day of meeting. Because a lot of us are coming straight from work, maybe a quick pit stop home. So if there's a way that we can, unless it's some sort of a critically urgent situation, if there could be a deadline of getting consent agenda out the day before meeting, if there's additions.
Doable most of the time.
I was gonna say, we do strive for that, and we understand it, and we're gonna try to do better.
We just want, I think it's fair to say, we just all want to make sure that
Yeah.
we're giving our full attention and reading our materials completely.
All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended, as in front of us?
Yeah.
Think so?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Greg. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So now we're
Make us proud, Sarah. Lead away.
Wayne, you're up.
And I'll start off with the progress we're making on our vocab initiative. I believe it was the last meeting, I was talking about how, our Coyote word of the week and how we're trying to integrate one tier 2 vocab word throughout the building each week, and meeting with the reading league, they said that's great. Better would be 8 to 10 words a week, and I was like, okay, we gotta ramp things up a little bit, and I was working with the department chairs, and we've come up with a plan on how to integrate it. If we follow the plan, and we're going to, it's gonna be 9 words a week. Each core content area is going to introduce 2 tier 2 words within their content area. So math, science, social studies, and English are each gonna introduce 2 tier 2 words in addition to the Coyote word of the week. So we put each of those, we have a spreadsheet made each week. You can see which 2 words each core content area is introducing. And then all the other teachers from the technical areas, art, music, PE, tech, they can all look at that, and they're gonna draw some words from those 8 additional words to try to embed into their instruction as well. So we're gonna start that. The teachers already had a good start on their lists. So most of the core content areas already have 2 months worth of tier 2 words that they have developed. And we're gonna start that the first week of the 3rd quarter.
So tier 2, where does that come from?
Tier 2, tier 1 is just those basic words that are pretty simple that without even having to put thought into. Tier 2 are the little bit more difficult words. Those are the ones that are pretty much cross-curricular vocab words that kids struggle with. So they find that a lot of the time our students are struggling, a lot of times not because they don't necessarily know the concept or how to solve the problem in math. They don't understand the question that's being asked, because some of these tier 2 words stymie them a little bit. So each word, let's see, justify, abundant, significant, when they're reading it, they don't know what that means. So we try to, and like I say, we've been doing 1 word a week. We're gonna up that to 8 or 9 words a week. So our kids are being embedded with these tier 2 words in the instruction, hearing how these words are used cross-curricularly, so that when they're to the point where they're taking an assessment or having a conversation, they know what that word is. And it's really cool to be in the class now and hear a kid go, initiate, the teacher say initiate. I know, initiate. I don't want to hear that again. I know what it means. But that's what I like hearing that, because that means that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing and really reinforcing these tier 2 words. And the tier 3 words are the ones that are content specific. Those,
Photosynthesis.
yeah, in science. So that's kind of, the tier 2 words are those ones that kind of are utilized in all the different content areas, but can be very confusing to kids.
Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna start that in the 3rd quarter. And I will keep you posted on how that goes. I talked about our shared programs with Spencer Burnett, and I'd just like to update where we are with that. We are still sharing programs. Our sharing program started back when we had the merger conversation years and years ago. And although the communities, both communities resoundingly said we'd like to have our own small schools, the one thing that both districts saw when we were going through the merger process is, wow, you got some really cool things there, and we got some really cool things there. Let's start sharing some of these programs. We are, and those programs kind of change as student interests change. We do have 3 of our students going to Spencer Benetton right now to participate in their animal science program over there, which we don't have here. Spencer Benetton's sending 3 students over here to participate in CAD and I believe it's architectural drawing. So, and they also send a student here to our alternative school program. So we were hoping last year, we talked about expanding our ag programs together. But it was too late in the year to really do that effectively. So I am meeting with Missy Jewell, the principal over there, and their guidance counselor, and Jason Banks, our guidance counselor, and we're gonna get a head start on that to try to make sure we can coordinate our ag programs in such a way that we can share the programs and get more students involved with that. And, with just budgets always tightening, I think we're gonna find schools having to do this more often, just sharing programs. And we're just good partners, proximity wise, and a lot of the programs. We've been doing that for a while, so it's worked out well. And I did talk to you about our plan for midterm Regents exams and remote instruction day. We've communicated out to families. We have it on the website. We've sent it out in a voice message and emails to parents. We sent out a digital equity survey to make sure they all have internet. Talking to students about it, just make sure you have the internet. And our teachers, Matt provided a refresher on utilizing the Google Meet so that you can, teachers and students can interface directly during the school day on Tuesday. And students are going to do a refresher with their teachers either tomorrow or Friday in English class. English teachers are going to be doing that. So I think we're going to be ready. It's going to be nice to practice our remote instruction plan. And we might be like, wow, that worked out really well. Or we might be like, boy, that fell on our face. And at least we know what we got to work on as a contingency plan if we ever do need one for a long term. Hopefully never again, but never say never. So that's where we at. And I'll keep you posted on how that goes, the good, bad, and ugly of remote instruction day. And I will try to get you that video too. I did send it out, but it was really cool. Our Candor Public Relations Club put together a nice video for all the students in the building to showcase all the different clubs they offer so kids know what's available. And I forwarded it to you, but I'll talk to Nat, see if there's not something we can do to get it sent out so you can view it.
Thank you. Good luck with the remote day.
You got Matt.
Got no math.
Pete, you're up.
Right. My first piece there is regarding attendance. I wanted to keep it consistent. I reported around this time last year about our attendance and our attendance initiatives. You can see outlined there in the dark black in the description there of what our attendance committee had found crucial when talking about attendance, when thinking about attendance. And that helped guide our initiatives with attendance. And over the past 2 years, you can see our data there, but this year we've increased our attendance percentage. And if you look at the number of absences compared to last year, it's roughly 500 less than we have last year, which is impressive. And one of the things I think it's important to note by that data is since COVID, you can see the increase of attendance of students' absenteeism. For various reasons, parents are a little reluctant now to send kids to school with a cold and just being pretty cautious. But that goes back to the piece up in the dark black there about engaging and educating families of when to send your student to school, when to keep them home. I think those are some great numbers. It shows that our initiative last year that are proven to be effective. We have a greater attendance rate this year. So the outlook is positive on that, and we're going to continue to do some of the initiatives that we're doing this year. So we're looking forward, and then again, I'll report on around the same time frame next year, just to keep it consistent so you guys can see the numbers. The second piece, the literacy plan, Sarah, myself, our reading teachers, Christine Stevens and Josh Schechter, met with our teachers today and earlier this week about the next step in our literacy plan. Last month, I reported on our oral reading fluency numbers. Now we're taking steps forward to address I think it's 56% gap in proficiency of our kids. And we're taking steps to address those needs, and that started today with the teachers to talk about the next two assessments. It's called the PAST and the QPS, and they both address phonics and phonological awareness. And I described a little bit about what those were in the description there. But we talked about how, as a building, are we going to do that efficiently, effectively, and reasonably. And we had great conversations with the teachers today. Our teachers are really gung-ho about getting this work done. So next week during our intervention block is when those assessments are going to be given by all of our teachers for their classrooms, for those students who have those proficiency gaps based on the oral reading fluency that I reported on last month. So next week, we're going to give these two assessments. On top of that, today, Sarah and I had a coaching meeting with the Reading League. And we talked about, okay, when we get these assessments and we get this data, what do we do next? And their recommendation was, in our March Superintendent's Conference Day, they're going to work directly with our teachers about creating what our intervention could look like through a specific lesson plan. Notably, it's called the 6-step lesson plan. But they're going to help our teachers on our Superintendent's Conference Day use the data that they collect next week in those two assessments to create a more meaningful, well-informed intervention time. And we're really looking forward to that, because our intervention time right now is great, but this gives teachers another tool and another piece of data to use. And working with the Reading League is going to be, it's instrumental in the work that we're going to do to increase our proficiency rates. And Sarah and myself, as leaders in the building, we're learning a lot just from the coaching piece that we had today. Sarah and I think both went into that meeting like, okay, we're gonna give the assessments next week. The following week, we're gonna implement all this in intervention. And they kind of said, well, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's make more meaningful and educated decisions on this, which was great. So Sarah and I are learning a lot through this process too, and I appreciate the work that they've been able to do with us through the Reading League. So more on that to come. And I do want to give a shout out to our reading teachers, Josh Schechter and Christine Stevens, who basically led this work with the teachers, and Sarah and I were just there for support. They've given these two assessments over the last couple of months as like practice with the kids, so they can then share the information with the teachers like they did this week. So I want to give a shout out to them. They did a lot of work this week to get the teachers going in the right direction. The First in Math. This is a program that we are getting free currently from the state. I think it's this year, next year we might be getting it free, but we're piloting the program through our math committee. They've identified fact fluency as being one of our priority areas in math. So number sense and fact fluency, our practice through this First in Math program. And as you can see in the description, we're trying to push it building wide. We've kind of done a slow rollout over the past 3 years. The first year was just 1 or 2 classrooms kind of piloting it. Last year, we did 2nd through 6th grade. This year, it's 1st through 6th grade. So we're kind of slowly getting on board as a building with the program. And we're kind of keeping it as a healthy competition-based initiative, as I described there. But our resident, I would say professional PDFer, I guess, in our building is Mariah Young, and she knows the ins and outs of the program. She's actually been working with BOCES to provide a regional training for First in Math that she's going to be doing. It wasn't January like I noted there, but it got moved to February. But she's going to be working with teachers throughout our region and our BOCES on the First in Math initiative, because the First in Math is being pushed through the state for piloting for free for a number of years for schools. So we're starting to see more schools pick it up because they're starting to see what we saw a couple years ago, where fact fluency is really impacting the students' mathematical understanding. fact fluency number since. So again, kudos to Mariah Young for taking the lead on that in the region, which is really great. We do have a couple teachers that are going to that as well, that PD as well, that she is facilitating. The last piece, the iReady piece, I will have more information on that. We're still finishing up the assessment, so I didn't want to give you partial data. So I will report to you guys on that in February. And lastly, I do want to, it's not on my report, but I want to thank Lockheed Martin, Nate Brace. We had a STEM day last Friday. We have another STEM day tomorrow that Lockheed Martin is coming in and facilitating with our 4th through 6th graders. And the kids really loved it. I'll let Matt speak a little bit more on it because he's in his report too. But I also want to thank both Matts for the support that they've given our teachers too. But I'll let Matt speak a little bit more to that. Report. Yeah.
This Mariah Young, is that a local employee or somebody else?
Yep, she's a 4th grade teacher.
Okay, I didn't.
Yep. And she's taking on that role of first in math specialist, I guess you could say. Yeah.
Just one question on the Reading League. Is that a one-time grant funding deal, or can we keep working with them? It sounds like we get a lot of really good.
I'll let Chris and Brent speak to that.
Yeah, we can keep working with them. We contracted with them. We're partnered with them no matter what. Even there's costs associated, but it's money well spent for professional development. Anything you want to add?
This year, the cost was incorporated into our Title I grant. So we'll look at what we need in the future and kind of ways to fund that partnership going forward. Thanks.
Pete, for all of the training that's happening with the Reading League, are the special area teachers also being included in that to help with the intervention block?
Yep, actually, most of our special ed department is the ones that are leading these 2 assessments that we're giving next week. A lot of them have already given it to some of their learners. So they've given it and they're giving our general ed teachers feedback on best practices. But yes, they're really kind of the ones that have the most experience doing that already. And Kim's been working with them to meet the needs of the lower learners in our building through that work.
And just to clarify, I'm thinking like the music folks, the PE teachers.
Oh, gotcha.
Special area.
Special area.
Yes, the special area folks, are they receiving that same intervention training are they still supporting the intervention block? Is that?
They are still supporting the intervention block, and I don't know what their role is going to be with this specific work, because my goal was to get special ed teachers first and regular ed teachers. That's a priority because they have the kids day to day, and they'll be the ones expected to intervene in the classroom or the ELA or math block. But the special area teachers do still intervene during intervention time. I can see them having a greater role with this work next year when it's more set in stone. We kept telling the teachers today that this year, the next 3 or 4 months are just kind of practice for what we're going to gear up for next year. And it's a lot of work, but like I said, our teachers are ready for it. I think Sarah and I were just kind of being cautious. But.
They have been attending all of our training
Correct.
with us, so they have all the same understanding that everyone else does. That's great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're up to Matt.
So to start, the high school and junior and senior high school have been using a pass system that you probably remember when you were in school. The student walks up to the front of the room and signs out, takes the physical pass and goes to the restroom or the water fountain, writes down in their agenda where they want to go, if they're going to the library, or the teacher writes out a pass on a piece of paper and then they take that to the library. Craig we've been looking at alternatives, more high-tech alternatives to more tightly manage and just know where students are at any given time, partly for safety reasons. So if there was an emergency, a fire drill went off in the middle of a class, we could easily know where students are or where they're supposed to be in the hallways. But more so being able to really keep track of where students are in the halls. So students will walk up to a computer at the front of the room, they type in their name, and then they select where they're going. after they've gotten permission from the teacher, and they create the pass and it comes up on their screen. If they're going up to the library, it pops up on the screen on Neil's computer and he knows that a student's coming up, or wherever that student's going. And when they get there, they can click on End Pass, or if they've just gone to the restroom, when they return to that class, they click End Pass when they come back. The advantage is that Craig can, or any teacher actually, if there's a teacher that's on hall duty, they can click on their hall duty icon and all the students with their picture shows up, so they know who should be in the hallways and who shouldn't be in the hallways. If the student is not in the hallways, they can sort of ask them where they're going and why they don't have a pass, that sort of a thing. And there are some added benefits. If there is a conflict between two students and they shouldn't be in the hallway together, you can exclude them. So if one person has selected a pass, the other one has to wait. They don't know why. It just says wait for a few minutes and try again. You can also limit the number. So if you only want, there's only two stalls in the bathroom, you can limit it to 2 or 3 people at a time. So you wouldn't have a lot of people, going to the same restroom, meeting up or those sorts of things. So a lot of data that can be collected. The nice part is if you have a student that appears to be using the restroom a lot, we have that data. Now you have to sort of collect it separately from teachers and they have to say, yeah, oh yeah, that student is going out of my class every day too. And so we'll be able to see if a student just is going to get a drink every period or what have you, to just because they want a little break and want to walk around. So it'll be great for meetings with parents to talk about how much class time they may be missing. We just implemented it with the junior high about 2 weeks ago, and it's been a really nice, good success. It's been easy for teachers, it's been easy for students, and we just met with the rest of the high school staff yesterday to show them how to use it, and they're already using it today. So the few little kinks to work out, but I think it's going to be a really nice addition to helping Craig and Wayne to know who's where in the building, and good information for meeting with parents as well. With the addition of Matt Pisano, started about a month ago, and he has picked up everything that we've thrown at him so far. He's doing a great job. I really appreciate his hard work. He's very excited to be here, and he's getting to know everybody. There are a lot of faces, a lot of people to get to know, but he's picking up names of teachers and students. He was with me in the elementary school last Friday. I'll talk about that in a minute for STEM Day. I don't know that he was quite ready when I interviewed him. When we were walking over there, I'm like, in your interview, I don't think you probably knew you were going to be working with kindergartners and first graders doing B-bots, did you? And he's like, no. I said, hope you're okay with that. He said, yeah, that's okay. So he is great with kids and good with teachers. So with Matt joining us, it's really been a nice opportunity to review all of our systems, review our procedures, and get his input on ways things could be improved, but also just reviewing them for our kind of annual review of cybersecurity standards. And it's something that I'm doing. It's an ongoing process, but this is a really great opportunity to dive into those standards a little bit more deeply and look at those processes so that we can just become more and more secure. We've been doing a great job with multi-factor authentication and some other audits or things that we did last year. I just did a review of permissions for School Tool and Google Workspace, just to make sure that we aren't giving people too much access to things. Often as people move in organizations and their roles change, we don't remember to take away permissions that they don't need as they move into new jobs. So it was a really great opportunity to sort of clean that area up. And then I was a little bit aggressive in doing that, as Chris knows, because I cut off her access to things, and she's like, yeah, I can't do anything anymore. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I guess you need that, because she was our data coordinator, and so I was like, oh, she's now our business specialist. She doesn't need to do any of that. And then I realized she needs a lot of data in these schools. So sorry about that, Chris.
I had it back minutes after I
Yes.
emailed you. It was perfect, yeah.
So that was a great opportunity to clean up some things there. And that process will be continuing in terms of the NIST review. And I can provide you some more information later in the year on our last year's NIST scores and how we're progressing this year. So I'll do that in another meeting. And then STEM Day in the elementary school, we because Lockheed was working with our 4th through 6th grade students, Pete and I worked on this last year where I helped the pre-K through 3rd graders, teachers come up with activities. And so Matt worked with us, and Allison Glassman from TSD BOCES was a great help last Friday as well, and she'll be here again tomorrow to be in the classroom to help. She is a tech integrator, so she works with teachers in all the component districts, and she spent the whole day with us. And so she was able to work with teachers in their classrooms with their students, and it was a great opportunity for them to see her interacting with the students. And my hope is that the teachers may reach out to her or ask me to reach out to her to do more of that, to know that there is support and it's not just me or Matt, but sometimes I think they feel guilty about asking me for help because they don't want to bother me, even though I love getting into the classrooms with them. So I'm hopeful that Allison they'll reach out for more help from her because she is a great resource. So we did B-bots, which are these little robots that just have arrow keys in kindergarten and 1st grade. 2nd grade did an hour of coding in one class, dash and dot robots that the students did programming with, and Ozobots. And then 3rd grade did Makey-Makeys, which are these little computer boards that students use Play-Doh and anything that conducts electricity, aluminum foil, graphite from a pencil, to make controllers that will make the computer do things. So fun, like hands-on things that make the computer do things, which is really fun. So they had a great time with that. So we had a nice day. It was nice to be up, and I got a lot of steps in, but it was nice to be away from my desk for a while. So it was great.
Wow. And then tomorrow is the same again? Are they the same kind of, like you did half the grade and half the grade? Cool.
Yeah, so the teachers, because they had like a 30-minute block with students, they didn't get to explore, often they just get to learn, get started with it, and then like, okay,
Time's up.
we gotta move to the next station. So it's a nice way for them to kind of dig a little bit deeper into it.
Excellent.
And Lockheed has developed this program for schools where they spend an hour with kids. So they have an hour with each classroom in 4th through 6th grade. So they kind of do rotation over the next 3 weeks. So they're gonna come back in March as well, and then again in May to finish those rotations.
Great, thanks. And then we have Holly's report. Shane's report.
I would just
Yeah.
offer an edit on that it's not actually a new town supervisor, but actually a new town highway superintendent.
Right. Noted.
Yes.
She'll grab that for the minutes. I see her
Yes.
writing here. And Chris.
Yeah, so we're really gearing up and getting some, budget planning and numbers, working with numbers, starting to get things put together. The executive budget proposal came out earlier this week. We see a tentative, right, this is the early projection. A slight increase in our foundation aid. We are seeing that our neighboring districts are seeing decreases in their foundation aid numbers. It's pretty across the board. So it's kind of as we look out over the years, and we'll be talking, our first budget advisory meeting is next month, beginning of, it's before our February meeting.
Yeah.
So we'll have a lot of information for you then. We'll try to get as much of it as we can out, to you as we get that. We've been having some different meetings. Mr. Sutterby, Ms. Anderson, Katie Anderson, and Holly Carling and I met with our fiscal advisor group and talked about first the building project funding and when that has to start happening, what that looks like for us for future budgets. And also talking about buses for 24, 25, and kind of plans for our next bus purchases, and then integrating into those conversations about the transition from diesel buses to electric buses and how that might happen. Also, Katie and Holly and Mr. Sutterby and I have started meeting. We're going to be meeting monthly. We had just last week had our first time getting together, but we're kind of looking through and starting to pull apart the information that NYSERDA and other agencies have put out regarding the roadmap and the guidebooks for the e-bus process, the funding sources. We've put some different, kind of started to gather the information that we've seen at different presentations, so we can kind of work through that together and start to really, develop a plan as we get further into the process and have to make decisions about actually purchasing electric buses, how that's going to happen and how that's going to look for us. Our next meeting, I think we're planning to visit one of our neighboring districts. We have a couple locally that have purchased electric buses and have purchased chargers. So, we want to get out and get to see and talk with them and, see where they started and how that's going for them. So we want to really meet regularly and build that conversation so that when we do have to take that first step into purchasing, we're really prepared for that. And that includes looking at all the different funding available now. And when we met with fiscal advisors, that was one of the conversations we had, and they're feeling that there will be more funding coming. So being able to take advantage of what's coming down the road as well. We met with Orville Bowden yesterday. Did we meet yesterday? Yesterday, yes. On health insurance, we meet all the time. To review health insurance costs and where we are through December 31st and how that looks for our budget this year. And then kind of starting to think about what our budget numbers for health insurance will look like for next year. We've put in our initial service requests for BOCES. They'll be turning those around to us, and I think we'll see them in the next month or so coming to talk about their budget as well. But that gets built on, those initial and final service requests the districts put in. We'll have to do our final requests usually by the end of February for BOCES. And, all of that stuff kind of comes together, and, we'll start to work those numbers for budget projections before next meeting.
Two questions. We will have expended the majority of ESSER 3 in learning loss. What's the deadline on that?
So, those two grants, along with the after school, the summer school, is through September of 2024. Most of the learning loss that's left is teacher salary. So that will be expended by, pretty much by June. And yes, there's three is kind of a combination. We still have some purchasing, a little bit of purchasing power with that grant as well. So, but most of it will be expended before we go into our next budget.
So the summer school bucket is more or less empty.
The summer school budget, grant bucket is more or less empty.
And then, backtracking to the e-buses. Just overall grid capacity, are people talking, like, do we need to talk to NICEAG about whether we need a substation on that
So
list?
we had, they had an evaluation done on, routes and rates and what, usage, right, sort of. Recently, and they got some reports back, Transportation Department, Katie Anderson, worked with Voice Technology to do that. And so they gave us some great information on what they feel based on the routes, the miles, the number of routes, the, terrain, all of those things, what we would need for usage, I guess, right? And then the next step is to talk to our provider, to NICEAG, and share that information and, kind of talk with them about what that looks like infrastructure-wise, yeah.
Because those are long lead times.
Why we just want to start
Yeah, no,
talking
you're on
about
it,
that
yeah.
now, yeah.
Thank you.
Chris, as we're looking into the start of budget season, did you glean anything from the governor's state of the state address? Anything of concern that we need to be preparing ourselves for?
Right.
That speaks loud.
Not really from the state of the state, but more from the executive budget proposal, right, that has come up. And I guess just specifically for the foundation aid and how that, is calculated, thoughts on how that should be calculated. And also, we're hearing, a lot of districts that were hold harmless or that had planned on having a steady, at least flat, foundation aid are seeing those reductions. And we know that we were just fully funded last year. So we're still, at the tail end of that, and what that looks like for us next year and in future years, is where my concern is, yeah.
Right.
Okay, so I just want, always keep you updated on the capital projects, because right now we're juggling three, and that staircase to the auditorium still hasn't been fixed, but we're close to closing that out. And then for a large $10 million capital project, our plans and specifications were submitted to the state for approval in October. Now, I'll tell you, I'm not gonna blame the state for everything, because that was a little later than what we had planned. But it got in October 5th, and we thought, okay, we were hoping to get approval in January, and now we're looking at February and March. They're now tracking it as taking longer because state ed is backed up and moving slower than anybody was predicting in October. So now we're talking about April. Well, that poses a real obstacle for us, because if we go out to bid in April, it's too late. Everyone's gonna have their jobs. Everyone who can meet the requirements of this job, and they're very specific, and the state has to approve them, so we can't change them at that point. There is a solution though, through the TIPS program, which stands for the Interlocal Purchasing System, which everybody in it already has state approval. We could accept proposals, which isn't quite the same as a bid. It's not like I'm signing a contract yet. And that really is the way to do it. So our construction manager put that out. We did hear of one local roofing company that had some interest. We made sure that they got all the information. I put them in touch with Sean Dalloway, who's taking those proposals. And we got proposals back that, the good news is that they came back very favorable. So we'll be okay, as long as, we still can't start anything or sign a contract until we get approval. But if we can give a company that gave us the best proposal, reasonable assurance that yes, we will work with them, as pending state approval, we'll be good, because they won't take on other jobs, so we'll get the best work. So that, it's, a little complicated. I'm not thrilled about it, but it will work, and it's where we are. And then the similar thing, I'll let you know, on our next 100,000 outlay, which is improving and replacing some septic at the elementary school. That's another one where our submission to state ed was a little later than it probably should be. It's still on track at this point. But I told you at the beginning of this project, I'd always let you know the good and the bad when we're not happy. So that I'm not thrilled with. It's not a crisis, though. We still anticipate getting approval and getting that work done on time. If it's delayed, the only real problem is it throws us off our cycle of having a project starting just when other money's coming off the books and reimbursement from the previous project is coming in. So if it throws us off the cycle, we can get back on. It would just delay things, and we don't need that to happen. So I cover that well enough. Then, thank you, Mr. Alper, asking about the governor's state of the state. She did talk a lot about public education, not enough about funding, but some. She talked a lot about the science of reading, and we have to go that way. I had mixed emotions about it. One, I wanted to cheer in that we have a great teacher team and administrative team, and we were already on it. And I tell the governor, great, you're a year behind us. That would have just been snarky, so I didn't. She doesn't take my calls anyway, so I let that one go. So, that's good. Everything that Mr. Ahart and Mr. Amon and what was in Mrs. Nichols' report about what we're doing with literacy is dead on with what she's saying has to happen. Okay, we're good there. She also talked about $10 million for teacher training and giving that directly to teacher control. I'm all about that. That will go through the teacher center, and our Tioga Teacher Center includes Candor Central School District, Tioga, and Newark Valley. And as I put in my report, I really trust the people. We have Farley on the board. We have an administrative participant, Matt Gelder. So I know that's money well placed and will help in what we're already doing. So that's also great. And then she talked a lot about school-based mental health. And again, I just wanted to thank the board for steps they made even before I was on. We've added counselors. Mr. Amon has, brought in the YES program. We're doing all the things that she rightly says needs to happen. So, that's what I took away was mostly fine news. We're on it. We know we need to push harder. We're on that too. Question. And there are a couple other things that I just wanted to mention, and it's in response to some questions that have come up in the last few weeks. I did get questions from a couple different sources. People noticing the Candor Central School District on a Tahoe. Do you really need the Tahoe? Great question, and it's fair, and it gives me a chance to brag about the transportation department and business departments. That we actually purchased a while ago. Last May, we approved the purchase, or the board approved, or the voters approved, because the voter approved the purchase of a 7-passenger vehicle for student use. And we were looking at a van because we were replacing a van. When they did their due diligence and they looked at the price of the two vehicles and then put in what our reimbursement, our transportation aid ratio is, the difference becomes very, I won't say negligible, but it is not as great as you would think. And then you project out, we keep most of our vehicles for roughly 7 years, but if you look at what the resale value or the trade-in value after 5 years or 7 years, or even 10 years if we decide to hang on to it, and all of that was looked at, we're actually driving that vehicle for less money or less cost to the district over its lifetime than a van would. Oh, and by the way, we no longer could get a van that had all-wheel drive. So it's increased safety, comfort, clean, and resale value made it the cheaper option. And again, I don't want to sound defensive. I don't mean that at all. I just know that people work really hard, and I think that we're doing a good job being good stewards for our citizens, at the same time, getting the most that we can for our students, so that students get to ride in a safer vehicle. And usually that's just very apparent. Sometimes it's not at all apparent. It's counterintuitive. And I love getting the questions, because like this, it gives me the chance to say, wow, this team's doing great work. And it happens like that time and time again. One other thing I wanted to just mention really quickly, Mr. Raymond did a great job talking about the partnership and the steps they're doing to make that a little more streamlined between our neighboring districts, Pennsylvania and us. And to continue that, their superintendent, Barbara Case, and I, we meet monthly. We have since before the two boards met together at Case Hill to talk just about that. And last Friday, following up on that, Mrs. Nichols came with me. We were going to meet Barbara with the new director of Tioga County's Cornell Cooperative Extension, and Lisa Weston Bailey, who is Tioga County Career Center Coordinator. And just to talk about that, we're already trying to work together to create a really strong agricultural program. Delmer Paget and Cindy Walter came down and joined us to talk about ways we can also partner with BOCES, one for the cost savings and to even offer more programs. It was a long, exciting, invigorating meeting. A lot of good ideas are coming out of it. And again, I just want to let the board know we're still working on that. And as we have solid programs that we can offer to our students that we couldn't before, we'll keep you informed. Yes.
What are the possibilities of Spencer Benetton joining our BOCES?
Great question. So, the board would have to decide, and Barbara would have to decide, and then they would petition and apply, I don't know what the right word is, to leave their BOCES and join our BOCES. That can only happen when there's a district superintendent in transition. When that happens, when a district superintendent leaves, they'll look at the BOCES, say, is it even still viable? Or are we going to break it up? And at the same time, any district that's continuous with them could make that application. My understanding is it hasn't been approved. One hasn't been approved in over 20 years. So it's a long shot that the state will approve it. And then Barbara and I have talked about it, and I've talked about what I think the advantages for Candor are, for TST are, and what I think, although it's not my place to say, might be advantages for Spencer Benetton. So that's where that is right now. I don't know if they've asked. I know there are programs that they're very happy with that they get through Southern Tier. So it's not an easy decision for them. It's an easy decision for me if I could make it. Yeah, I'm joining this. It's great. But I know there's a lot more that will go into it. And even if they make that decision, then it has to be approved. So did I give too long of an explanation or just enough? That's my understanding. Yeah.
But it can only happen when a new super comes in?
Yes.
Yes, I don't know why that is. That's the way the
Yes.
rules are written.
BOCES super?
BOCES
When-
super. BOCES
Whenever
super.
there is a BOCES superintendent that leaves, the state does a study, a survey, and to all the surrounding districts and BOCES to see if that BOCES is viable and can still operate on its own. At that time, surrounding BOCES or surrounding component school districts, when they do their survey, they can, I'm gonna say submit, but they can express their desire to join that BOCES for whatever reasons. All those surveys are reviewed, and the commissioner makes a decision as to whether, and her staff make the decision whether or not our BOCES, TSC stands alone, or if it'll be altered in any way. Once that's done, a letter comes to our BOCES with that determination, along with a letter stating that you may now go ahead and proceed with a search for a new district superintendent. Up until that point, we cannot start our search for a new superintendent until that's done. Once all the searches are done and we as a board decide, well, this is who we'd like to hire as our superintendent, it must go to the commissioner and she must approve whether or not we can hire that person, simply because the state pays a portion of the district superintendent's salary.
So is Dr. Madison gonna be on the committee that decides his replacement?
I think you will. I think you will.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and he is on that committee to decide whether or not our BOCES remains as it is or there are any changes. And who, they will appoint the person who will be doing our search as well.
And I can't back this up with documentation or anything. It's just my understanding of why they limit it to only when a superintendent, a district superintendent is leaving, is because where the BOCES are closer together and the populations are bigger and maybe the dollars are bigger, down around Long Island, New York, you would end up with districts hopping all the time. It would be just out of control.
Right.
Which, so that makes
Exactly.
sense. Yeah. And
You know those downstate.
I know, they just mess up.
They do not attend the rural schools conference.
That's
They
right,
don't.
they do not.
Thank God.
Although there is one guy that comes to Rural Schools Conference every year, and he was coming when I was on the board before, and that's been over 20 years ago. So, and he comes every year, but you have to remember on Long Island, there are rural districts there too, so.
Get out far enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Very interesting.
We are up to board comments, friends. Yeah, nothing.
Well, I'd like to thank our superintendent for surviving the snow of this week. And we're really proud of you and of our transportation
And
folks.
Katie and Howie for
Yeah. it's-
weathering multiple storms.
Right, but you have our support.
And the professionalism that was demonstrated in addressing concerns about everything around the storm, I think that folks handled that very well. And from my perspective, more folks than not got it and were supportive of how that was addressed.
And I'd like to recognize one of our retirees, Joanne Goulart Weber is 97. And I just got a card from her today. Her handwriting's better than mine. She's sharp as a tack. She's in a assisted living in Elderwood, but doing well and lengthy note, longer than the one I sent her. So,
Sweet lady, for sure. I don't have any other comments either. I can keep up good work, guys and gals. We're back to recognition of visitors. Does anybody want another bite of the apple out there in the audience?
I have a
Yeah,
couple
what you got?
questions on all these notes I'm taking.
Yep.
For Pete, so the first in math, I don't see the extended notes that the board has. So is that a new curriculum or is that just to help with intervention? Or?
Yeah. It's a program that's focused on that fluency in number sense. And it's more of in a game format, and it's based on the students, where they're currently at and their understanding of fact fluency and number sense.
Okay, so it's kind of in addition to the curriculum theory.
Correct, yep.
Okay.
They get stickers. And there's a lot of healthy competition around how many
Yeah.
stickers people have in the program,
Right,
right?
kids are motivated by the stickers. My
Yes.
son comes home all the time and says, I got so-and-so. Nice. That's what it takes.
But they're not real stickers, they're
Yeah.
digital stickers, so,
Oh,
which is very
okay.
odd, to me, whenever I hear stickers, I'm like, How are they getting stickers for this, but they're not? They're
Okay,
digital.
it's digital stickers. Okay, all right, I'll have to ask.
Okay.
Thank you.
That disappoints me to hate. I really wanted a
notebook
big
covered
sheet
in
of
stickers.
paper
With
in
all
the
the
hallway with stickers. Come on.
Well, the goal is 1 million stickers, and I'm not gonna buy 1 million stickers and put them up in the hallway. So they have to be digital.
No fun. No, getting a gold star never gets old. Never gets old. So I got one today.
I only have one more question. So the summer program came up a bit when we were talking about budget. So it sounds like we spent the budget for that we had from the grants and things that came up. So is there gonna be money that's found to support that program for this summer?
That's a great question. So we talked about the success of the summer school program, the value of it, and wanting to support it. So I'm gonna leave it at that because it's too early in the budget process to sound like I'm making promises or guarantees. I'm not, but that's something we value, and the board's expressed the value. Fair enough. Okay.
You guys are all cool. So, thank you for coming again. So we have to go into executive session, so I'll need a motion for executive session to discuss contract negotiations, personnel matters, and legal action index, number 2023. Can't tell their number, 005 63099.
Got it.
Yes.
So moved.